welcome to the episode. In this week's video we are continuing on from the last, and that is the second and probably one of the final videos showing the behind the scenes of my photography tour here in Romania. We're now on Wednesday, so we're kind of basically halfway through the week. We're finishing on Saturday night and we're visiting now our second synagogue of the tour so far. It's a little hidden gem in the middle of the country in Transylvania, and there's some challenges inside. And in this video we're going to be talking about light and shadows, the contrast of a scene in a space like this. It's a very dark synagogue and there's lights popping in individual windows throughout the scene, and it makes things a challenge when it comes to photographing it. So we've been inside the synagogue for around about 40 minutes or so at this moment. It's a really interesting place. There's a lot of beautiful details, as you've seen there in the intro. Gold patterns, little drawings, intricate details on the wall. And there's a really nice shape, but there is quite a low ceiling, which is where I am at the moment. Essentially, the place is completely abandoned but locked up these days, and people come here to kind of protect it, look after it. And it's these people that I look to usually donate money to kind of get access for the group. In terms of the group, they're all mostly trying to challenge themselves to get interesting images, and they're probably going to go off to one side and they're looking for that central shot too. I'll talk you through some of the challenges. The biggest challenge in here actually comes in the form of the circle light. You've kind of just seen it in some of my clips there. Already it's pretty dark, so of course any spots like this, they're kind of like big contrast between the light and the dark areas, which is what I was saying a minute ago. So essentially here, when you're taking the central shot, you've got to look to either frame things where you're composing the scene, pushing in for a longer focal length, 24, 35 mil, or you're going to have to battle with the fact that this light and this trade-off is pretty grand. So at the minute Michael's just set up a shot in this central position. I'm going to go over his shoulder so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Essentially here you can see straight away there is a kind of highlight, bright highlight with that circle window. And the best way to combat that is to kind of underexpose the image and get some darker frames as well. Get one lighter frame and then you can kind of blend those parts together if you need to, but really you've got to try and protect those highlights. So starting with your brightest frame and working backwards is the best way to combat it. And a little bit of post-processing if your sensor of your camera isn't handling it so well. However, the window light along this side here now, where I'm now standing, is kind of fantastic. It's kind of helping to light most of the synagogue. So the fall off, you've got this kind of really nice, interesting contrast between the light and the shadows, especially in those back corners. And that's kind of where you want to show off some of those golden sections. It's kind of a nice weathered look to things. So everyone's trying to get like a central shot and then maybe something off to the side, something to accompany it. And that's where we're at the moment. The next biggest challenge is one that I'm going to show you myself once I actually set up my tripod and camera, and that is the actual lineup, the positioning of this central shot. To be honest with you, it's pretty difficult. Most of the things like the chandeliers, the lights hanging from the ceiling, the windows, the balcony, and the pews, of course, most importantly, are kind of a little bit all over the place. It takes a little bit of patience to basically be able to position things, line up, and get your composition as you want it in the back of the camera. To be honest with you, you can go sort of portrait or landscape orientation. That's not the problem. It's more about kind of looking at the visual cues in the scene and kind of running your eyes through it, using the edges, the frame of your camera, to kind of make sure that everything is kind of lined up throughout. You can even use the trick to zoom in right into the scene, make sure it's straight there, then zoom right back out where you want the focal range to be shot at, and essentially it would help you with your composition. The one-point perspective, as always, is the hardest in interior and architecture photography. Okay, so the idea is, where Michael was standing like 5 minutes ago, is basically up on this chair, and the reason why we're doing that is for a little bit of elevation. Tripod's not quite enough. So I've got my tripod, nice and in position, it's going to be easy. I'm going to do a couple of different shots, really to show off the light and the shadows that are in this place, because there is quite a contrast between the light and the shadows in here. And the shadows are nice, but I also really like the light. On the right-hand side, you've got nice light coming in the window, which you've seen. And on the left-hand side, it's softer, but it's still there. There's a lot of detail in them shadows, so there's a lot of contrast in the scene, especially when it comes to that window. But what I'm going to look to do is what I basically said to Michael to do. Essentially, we're going to chop it off. I've selected my 24mm TSE lens on here, my tilt shift lens, and my exposure is going to be really nice and easy. When it comes to bracketing, which is what I'm activating now, we're basically going to look to ISO 400, and we're going to really underexpose the scene. Now, in terms of getting things in the center, that comes from a little bit of experience, to be honest with you, and we're not far off. I'm using the geared head to just do fine adjustments to get it perfect, lining up the lines with the grid activated on the back of the camera, using the grid to get the lines nice and straight. So what I'm actually going to do is convert this 24mm into a 35mm by putting my extender on. I'm going to run and get it, and I'll be back. One extender later, everything else is going to fall into place. So the idea here is, by having the extender on just like this, I'm going to take this off, drop it between the adapter, of course, and the lens. It's getting hard to see because there's less light in here now. The scene is now much closer. The window is eliminated from the scene. I can straighten things out. Same thing. I mean, we've got a little bit of bleed at the top, which we're going to sort out in post. My brightest exposure is in the middle of the exposure bar. My next exposure is -2, and then we're -4. So that's actually pretty underexposed, but I'm going to use the camera's dynamic range to worry about the rest. Focusing, third in the scene, 2-second timers on, photographed. Simple as that. We've just cut off that window. When we blend these together, I don't want to overexpose the final result. I want to keep it kind of nice and tight. I want to show that shadows and highlights area. I'll chuck the result on the screen. If you want to support this channel, you can do so by purchasing one of the books listed in the description below. Okay, so that's pretty much me for today. I hope you've enjoyed this one, seeing a little bit more of the behind the scenes of the Romania photo tour. It's been a great day, actually. We photographed a fortified church, German built, in Transylvania, and also here, but further north in Transylvania, of course, we've photographed and ended with this synagogue, which is a bit of a gem. They've got a bit of roof leak issues going on since I last visited 6 months ago, which is a real shame. And they had heavy weather here, of course, just a couple of weeks ago, which has not helped that cause. In terms of photography, I've kind of guided you through some of the bits, and it is a challenging location because of those light and the shadows that we spoke about. That's it for this week. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you soon.